we're going to take a look at Memtest86. And that can be downloaded from Memtest86.com, and we'll link that in the video description below as well. And this test runs a little bit differently. It does not run within the Windows operating system. It does not run from the desktop. So what we'll have to do is download the program, and then we're going to create a bootable USB drive, and then we'll restart the system and boot the system from that USB drive so that Memtest86 can start RAM testing before Windows even loads. So it's a little bit different kind of test, gives you a little bit different type of coverage, and it accesses the RAM before the operating system even gets a chance to start occupying any of the addressable random access memory. So we'll go ahead and download the program, and then again we'll right click, go to properties, and unblock this file just so that we don't have any issues with Windows.
This file! Unblock!
And then once we unblock the file, we'll extract it. And then we'll go to the extracted folder, and we'll ensure that the folder contents is correct and fully extracted. And then we're going to make sure that we have a USB drive attached to our system so that Memtest86 can format that USB drive and then install itself onto that USB so that we can boot from that USB drive. And there is a PDF file in there with the user guide. You can open that up and read more thoroughly through the instructions of the program. And here you can see we have our USB drive, drive N, and we have 241 megabytes free. We're going to run the program from our desktop. Within the program setup, we're going to choose our USB drive, verbatim store and go. Then in step 2, we're going to select write image to USB drive. We're pretty much going to leave everything at default. Step 3, select the image. The image is on our desktop, so it's going to be our user account, desktop, memory test is the folder that we put it in, Memtest86-USB, /Memtest86-USB.img. And then once we're satisfied with our settings, we're just going to click write, and then we'll receive this dialog box which will mention you have chosen to write an image to the following USB drive. Source, and it'll tell you the source of the USB drive on your system. Is this correct? We're going to select yes. And then once we click yes, we'll receive this final dialog box. It'll say final warning. The contents of the selected drives will be replaced. Continuing will cause destruction of the data and possible loss of capacity. Continue. We're going to select yes. So basically it's going to format the drive and then place the bootable image onto the USB drive. And you can see the write progress in the top box there. And you can see here it changed the drive format. Now it's formatting to a FAT file system. And you can see the overall progress bar there in the middle with the green indicating the current level of progress. It's logging the output here in the lower box. And then once it's done, it flashes imaging completed. We'll click refresh drives. And then we'll click exit. And then we'll go to the drive, and you can see it created the contents onto the drive. And then we'll restart the system. Once we restart the system, each system is a little bit differently on how you can boot from the USB drive. The old-fashioned tried and true method is just you could go into your BIOS, go to your boot priorities for your boot drives, and then just choose your USB drive as your primary boot drive for one restart. And then go back into BIOS after you're done and change your boot drive priority back to your C drive. But a lot of modern systems in the BIOS nowadays, you can just click a key usually and you'll get to a boot loader, a boot manager, and you can choose which drive to boot from. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. As we can see down here in the lower right of the BIOS start screen, there are some hotkeys mentioned. And it says in the third option, press F11 for boot menu. And that's what we're going to do instead of going into the BIOS and changing the BIOS boot priorities. And then we'll just scroll down to our UEFI verbatim store and go USB partition 1. And we know verbatim store and go is the USB we're looking for because that's the brand verbatim, and then the model was the store and go. So once we click that, it will now do a one-time boot from our USB drive partition 1. And you can see here Memtest is retrieving hardware info. Alright, now we're on the Memtest86 start screen. And you can see at the very top, it's counting down. Within 10 seconds, it's going to start the default testing. For new users, that's the best thing. Just let it count down and it'll start testing all of your installed RAM automatically. And if you wanted to, you could use your mouse or your arrow keys to exit the program or go to configuration. But we're just going to let it start here for the demonstration. See, there's some information about the system. There's the test, how much it's passed, which test it's on, test 2, address test, own address, the test progress, how much has passed of this current iteration of the test, and then you just let it do its thing, and it can take quite a while. It depends how much RAM you have and the performance of each system, but on this system, 32 gigabytes, I think it took around 6 to 8 hours, maybe 4 to 8 hours. We just let it run overnight. You can see at the bottom, while the test is running, there's a description to escape the test, to cancel the test, and to go into the configuration menu. To do that, you can click escape or C on your keyboard, or you can use your mouse to click it. A settings box pops up. We're going to choose the third option, so we're going to press number 3, which is go back to the main menu. But you can see you can do other things like skip the current test, end the test completely, or you can just cancel out of this escape menu box and that will just continue the current test. We're going to select number 3, go back to the main menu, and that takes us to the main menu. The mouse doesn't work very well here, and some people may lose mouse functionality altogether. But if you see on the left side of the navigation menu where it says test selection, address range, CPU selection, each option has a letter in parentheses. That's the letter you will press on your keyboard to get access to that menu option. And then you can use your left and right key for the submenu options. For example, if we wanted to go to address range, we would press A on our keyboard. If we wanted to go to CPU selection, we would press C on our keyboard. If we wanted to just start testing, we would just hit S and it would just start testing. If we wanted to RAM benchmark, we would press R on our keyboard. For settings, we would press E on our keyboard. And to exit, we would press X on our keyboard. That's one thing that can be confusing, and that's probably the most confusing thing on Memtest86. But once you get that figured out, the rest of the test is pretty straightforward and it stays pretty automated. And then we'll take a look at the different tests. Test 0, address test, walking ones, 1 CPU. Test 1, address test, own address, 1 CPU. Test 2, address test, own address. Test 3, moving inversions, 1s and 0s. Test 4, moving inversions, 8-bit pattern. Test 5, moving inversions, random pattern. Test 6, block move, 64-byte blocks. Test 7, moving inversions, 32-bit pattern. Test 8, Random number sequence. Test 9, modulo 20, ones and zeros. Test 10, bit fade test, 2 patterns, 1 CPU. Test 13. I'm not sure how we get from test 10 to test 13 here, but okay, here we go. Test 11 and 12 are available only in the Pro version. So we're using the free version here, so that's why we skip from 10 to 13 on the test number. After test 13, it's going to go through these 4 times, and as you saw when we started the test, it shows you the percentage of the pass you're on. So if this is the first pass, down here in the lower box, it'll tell you which pass you're on, pass number 1. And up here in the green, it says we're 8% through. We've finished 8% of pass number 1. So we have, what, 92% of testing left to go just to finish pass number 1. And then it'll go through pass number 2, pass number 3, pass number 4. They're all the same test, but they're designed to keep running this number of passes to help identify issues that might not happen every time. These are issues that are considered intermittent issues, and they don't happen all the time. But Memtest86 states that if you do have an error, there is a problem. You need to replace your RAM. Unless it's an error that is very intermittent, and it's unlikely to occur in normal computing. But then again, you're taking a little bit of a gamble. For some systems, it may be worth it. But if you have a lot of errors that are not intermittent, you need to replace your RAM because things are going to get corrupted. And you're going to receive a lot of crashes, blue screens, be reinstalling Windows on a regular basis because it's going to become corrupted. You have to reinstall the programs over and over again. You may start getting
weird things happening and
like drivers, user interfaces, and you start blaming it on that software, but it turns out it's actually the RAM that's corrupting it. So that's why it's important. If you do have errors, if you can, warranty, return, but ultimately replace. You're going to see the errors here in the lower right next to the pass number. We'll show you a comparison of 2 RAM kits that we tested. One of them is a couple of years old, and the other one is brand new. Let's take a look at that now.